I let my neighbor borrow my generator during a storm. The next day, he told me he'd lost it, but I could hear it running in his basement. I knocked. He shut the door in my face. A week later, I left a package on his porch. What's inside will make him call me first next time. I moved into this neighborhood in Elkview, West Virginia, about 11 years ago, after my divorce. I needed a quieter life, a place to reset. The house I bought wasn't anything special, just a two-bedroom on a dead-end street. But it was mine. The kind of neighborhood where people still talk over their fences and wave at each other from their driveways. Mark and his wife lived 2 doors down. Mark was one of those guys who always seemed like he had something to prove. He was loud, opinionated, liked to act like he was the smartest person in the room. But we kept things polite. A few casual talks while mowing the yard, nods at the mailbox. Nothing deep. I didn't like him much, but I didn't have a reason to dislike him either.
Not yet.
Last October, we had one of the worst storms I can remember. The power went out for most of the town. Trees came down, roads flooded. It was bad, but I'd planned ahead. I'd bought a brand new generator that summer, Champion 4375 with dual fuel. I kept it locked up in my shed with a chain. When the lights went out, I wheeled it around to the side of the house, fired it up, and had my essentials running in no time. Next morning, it was still raining, and I was making coffee with a single light on in my kitchen when I heard a knock at the door. It was Mark, soaked head to toe, holding a flashlight that barely worked. He said, "Hey man, any chance I could borrow that generator for a few hours? Our sump pump's down, and the basement's flooding. Janice's mom is here too. She's got that oxygen thing. We're in a bad spot."
I didn't want to,
but it felt wrong to say no. He looked desperate. So I said yes. I rolled it over myself and helped him hook it up. I told him, clearly, just need it back tonight. I need to run heat later. Bring it back before 9. He nodded. Absolutely. Just a few hours. That was the last normal moment between us. Night came. No sign of him. No text. Nothing. Next morning, no generator. I walked down to his place and knocked. Mark opened the door halfway, like he didn't expect to see me.
"Hey," I said.
"Just wondering about the generator." He didn't even blink.
"Yeah."
"Weird thing happened. I think someone stole it." "What?" "Yeah, I left it in the garage overnight. Door might have been unlocked. Went to check this morning, and it was gone." I stared at him. He didn't even look uncomfortable. "You serious?" He nodded.
"Sorry, man."
I know it was new. Real sorry. I didn't say much. I just walked away. But as I got to the side of his house, I heard it. That sound. That exact low hum, steady, smooth, I knew it. My generator. I followed the noise toward the small basement window by his side steps. Got low and looked in. There it was. Running, hooked up, cord going up through the ceiling. He lied straight to my face. I walked right back to his door. Knocked harder. He opened it just a crack this time. "You sure it's gone?" I asked.
"Yeah. Why?"
"I just heard it. From your basement." He didn't even flinch. Just stared at me, then shut the door. That was it. Not another word. And that's when something in me changed. I didn't yell. I didn't go off. I didn't even call the cops because I knew it had come down to his word against mine. But I started thinking. Planning. A week later, I left a package on his porch. He found it at 6 a.m. because I set the motion light off on purpose. He opened it within minutes. I know because I was watching from across the street in my truck, engine off, still in the dark. What was inside? Let's just say it was loud. It was personal. And it made him call me. The box was nothing special. Just an old cardboard Amazon box. But what was inside wasn't something he could ignore. I'd taken one of my old trail cams, the kind hunters use, and set it up that night after he borrowed my generator. I positioned it between the bushes by my shed, facing the sidewalk where Mark had wheeled it away. I'd almost forgotten I had that camera. But once I remembered, I pulled the memory card. The footage was clear. 9:13 p.m., Mark walking up to my shed, unlocking the chain with bolt cutters and rolling the generator away with his jacket covering the top. Not even subtle, like he wasn't worried about getting caught. I burned the footage onto a cheap DVD, wrote, "Might want to watch this before the cops do," on the sleeve with a black Sharpie, and put it in the box with a printout of the generator's serial number and the receipt, which had my name, date, and the exact model. Then I added one last thing. A sticker from the generator that I peeled off myself a few nights earlier when he left it unattended on his back patio for a few hours. It was the sticker with the serial number. I left the box at 5:47 a.m. right before I headed to work. By 6:15, he was calling me. I let it ring. He called again. And again. Third time I answered. I didn't say anything. "Hey," he said, his voice tight. We need to talk." I said, "I don't have anything to say to a liar and a thief." He went quiet. Then, "Look, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Janice didn't even know I still had it." I panicked, all right. I hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice. But it wasn't the last time I saw him. The next day, he came over while I was working on my truck in the driveway. Stood there awkwardly, with his hands in his hoodie pocket. "I left the generator in your shed," he said. "This morning." I didn't say anything. Just kept working. I was gonna bring it back. Things got out of hand. Still, I didn't look at him. Finally, he said, "You gonna call the cops?" I stood up. Looked him straight in the eye.
No.
"I'm not." Relief washed over his face for a second, but I wasn't done. "But I did make copies of everything. And if anything ever goes missing in this neighborhood again, or you even so much as step on my property without permission, I'll make sure they see it all." He nodded, but it wasn't respect. It was fear. After that, things got real quiet between us. No more waves. No more mailbox talk. Just silence. But then something strange happened. 2 weeks later, his wife Janice came to my door. She didn't look mad. She looked tired. "I just want to say..."
"I'm sorry," she said.
I didn't know any of it. I nodded. She left quickly. But that told me everything. Turns out, Mark had kept other secrets too. I didn't go digging, but things started coming out on their own. First, it was the for sale sign that showed up in their yard 3 weeks later. No warning. Just there one morning. I figured maybe the whole thing embarrassed him enough to want a fresh start somewhere else. But then I ran into Cody, their teenage son, while I was taking trash out one evening. He looked pissed. Not at me, just in general. "You really messed him up," he said, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I looked at him, not sure what he meant. He added, "He deserved it. I'm just saying it's been a long time coming." I didn't press, but I could tell there was more. A few nights later, I heard yelling coming from their place. Not your usual couple fight. It was full volume, no holding back screaming. Janice yelling words like "liar" and "I should have listened to my sister."
Doors slamming.
Something glass broke. The next morning, Mark was gone. Cody was sitting on the porch when I walked to my mailbox. I gave him a nod, thinking that'd be it. Instead, he stood up and walked over. "He's not coming back," Cody said. "She kicked him out last night." I didn't know what to say. So I just said, "All right." "He'd been lying for a while," Cody continued. "Stuff went missing from the garage all year. Tools, the leaf blower, even my bike. He'd sell stuff online. Told Mom he didn't know what happened. She finally caught him trying to pawn her grandmother's jewelry. That stopped me cold." "He pawned her family stuff?" Cody nodded. "She followed him after he left with the box. Watched him walk into the pawn shop. She waited till he left, then walked in and asked what he tried to sell." I didn't need to hear more. Mark wasn't just a liar. He was a full-on thief. And he'd been getting away with it for a long time. Cody looked me in the eye. "I'm glad you caught him." Then he walked back to his porch and sat down. A few days later, the for sale sign came down. But Mark's car never came back. Janice stayed. Cody stayed. They didn't wave, but they didn't need to. We understood each other now. But that wasn't the end. 2 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a deep voice said, Is this the guy who lives on Maple Drive? The one with the generator?
I paused.
Who's asking? I'm the manager over at First Pawn off Route 60. Someone tried to sell your generator again last week. We have it on hold. The police said you might want to ID it. I froze. That meant one thing. Mark still had a second one. The guy at the pawn shop gave me their address, and I drove down that same afternoon. It was a sketchy little place between a liquor store and an old muffler shop. I recognized it immediately, the same pawn shop Janice had mentioned to Cody. When I got there, the guy behind the counter asked if I had ID. I handed it over, and he went to the back. A minute later, he came out wheeling a generator, my generator. Not just the model, the actual one. Same scratch on the gas cap. Same faded sticker from the first time I used it during a backyard barbecue 2 years ago. I ran my hand over it just to be sure. That was mine. You want to file a police report? The guy asked. We've already flagged the guy who brought it in. Used a fake name, but the security footage was clear. Cops are supposed to pick it up this week. Do you still have that footage?
I asked.
He nodded. Want to see it? I did. He led me to the back and showed me the clip. Mark walked in like he'd done it 100 times. Hat low, sunglasses inside, like that made him invisible. Pushed the generator right up to the counter, tried to act casual. I watched him lie to the clerk, sign a fake name, and walk out with a few bills. My stomach turned. I didn't tell the pawn guy everything, just that I wanted to press charges. He handed me a copy of the footage on a thumb drive. I called the sheriff's office on the way home. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You didn't have to do that. It was Mark.
No palegui. No explanación. Just that.
Like I was the one who went too far. I didn't reply. But the next day, I sent that text to the sheriff too. A week passed. Then 2. I figured maybe he'd gone underground. Skipped town. Until I saw the sheriff's cruiser parked down the street near Janice's. I walked over after they left. Janice opened the door before I even knocked. You reported him? She asked. I nodded. He tried to sell my generator again. She sighed. He showed up here last week. Tried to say he wanted to fix things. I told him to get lost. I didn't know he was still dragging other people into it. He's not gonna stop, I said. This is who he is. She nodded slowly, like she'd known that for years but hadn't wanted to admit it. You should know something, she said. You're not the only neighbor he stole from. What? Back in July, before the storm, our other neighbor, Frank, lost a bunch of tools. Expensive ones. Mark told him someone must have broken into his garage. Let me guess, I said. He never reported it? Of course not. Because he did it. Something changed in Janice's face then, like she was tired of carrying his shame. He's going to try something, she said. Just watch your back. And she was right, because the very next week I woke up to something strange. The side gate to my yard was open, and the lock to my shed? Cut clean off. It was 6:12 a.m. when I stepped outside and saw the gate swinging open. I knew right away something was wrong. My shed had a heavy padlock on it. Now it lay in 2 pieces on the grass, like it had been clipped with bolt cutters. I walked to the door slowly. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady. When I opened it, I saw the second generator was gone. Not the one I'd recovered from the pawn shop. I kept that one in the basement now, bolted to the floor. This was an old portable I used for camping. Nothing fancy, but still worth a few $100. And I knew who did it. There weren't many people who'd come back a second time after everything that happened. Only one man was stupid enough, or desperate enough, to walk back into this neighborhood. I checked my security cam. Sure enough, there he was.
Mark.
Hood up, gloves on, same car parked at the end of the block, with its lights off. I sent the footage straight to the sheriff. They didn't need convincing this time. He was already out on bail for the pawn shop incident, and this new theft put him in violation. They picked him up the next day. They called me to let me know, and that should have been the end of it. But a few days later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Janice. She said she and Cody were moving out by the end of the month. Said she couldn't afford to stay and didn't want to raise her son in a place that felt poisoned. Not just by Mark, but by everything that came with him. The lies, the shame, the fear. She didn't blame me, she said. But she couldn't look out her window and see the reminders anymore. Then at the bottom, she wrote something I haven't stopped thinking about. I don't think he ever knew what it meant to borrow something. He just took. From everyone. But I think he was always most afraid of someone finally seeing through him. I think that's why he hated you. That letter sat on my table for weeks. I didn't reply. And I didn't try to stop her from leaving. I never saw Mark again after that. But I still check the lock on my shed every night before I go to bed. Just in case. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to just let it go. But then I remember the sound of him lying to my face, with my generator humming in his basement, like he thought I was too stupid to notice. And I realize it was never about the generator. It was about being the kind of person no one thinks they can lie to and get away with.